Hello Year 12, Mr. Marsh here, and I am going to be talking you through today a practical task that you're going to be working on over the week, which is an opportunity for you to demonstrate how well you understand the typical conventions of tabloid and broadsheet newspapers. So it's building on all the work that you've been doing since pre-Christmas, exploring the news industry, and the task is going to be as follows. So you can see on your screen there, hopefully. You're going to try and produce two newspaper front covers. You're going to create them yourself. And the idea is that these front covers will show the conventions of a tabloid and the conventions of a broadsheet. So the task is, as you can see at the top here, you're going to choose a tabloid paper and a broadsheet newspaper. So it could be, I've just put an example, the Sun and the Guardian. It doesn't have to be those. It doesn't have to be the newspapers from your case studies. You pick any two that you like, so one tabloid and one broadsheet. You're going to take a general story that's in the news at the moment. So what is kind of popular, what's the current topics, what's kind of hitting the news, or you could even invent your own news story. That's okay as well. The idea is that you think about what is conventional for the two papers that you choose. What are they likely to really make the central main story? But the purpose of this, and one of the things that you're going to try and do here, is you're going to try and take and feature the same story, ideally, across both newspapers. So how would that same idea, that same story be reported, for example, in the Sun and maybe differently in the Guardian? All right. So the idea is, as we say, that you're designing the front cover for both a tabloid and a broadsheet, two separate pieces, but with a focus on the same story. And the idea is that your design of the front cover is going to reflect the conventions as realistically as possible. Okay, so how are we going to do this? Well, first of all, we are going to be using Canva again. And Canva is something I know that you've used before and will hopefully be more familiar with now in terms of its use. I'm going to go over some of it as well, so it should sort of hopefully come flowing back to you. If you have access to something at home, some Photoshop, for example, or other software that you're familiar with already and you're quite happy to use, then that's absolutely fine. You don't have to use Canva. But Canva is a free resource, and if you don't have anything else, if you don't have Photoshop or anything like that, then this is a good place to start. Okay, so this is ideally probably where you will go and use. So we're going to use that. I'll look at that in a moment. The first thing to maybe think about, though, before we even get as far as that, is to think about revisiting your notes on news layout. So you looked before at the typical conventions in the way a newspaper might be set out, where you have the masthead and the heading and the image and so on. So going back over those notes and just having a quick look at that is going to be a useful thing to do. Next, the key thing to get in your mind here is that you want this to be something that replicates as best as possible a very real looking newspaper. We want this to look as though it really is from the Guardian, or really is from the Sun or the Mirror or the Telegraph, whatever you choose to do, right? So what you're going to have to look at is to look at past front covers and really try and get a sense of recognizing typical patterns or conventions that you see. So for example, you can see at the top here, I've already just typed in the Sun front cover in Google Images. You can see I've got loads and loads on here. So even before I click into them, I can probably scan over and start to see and recognize some conventional patterns in the way that the Sun designs its front covers. First of all, obviously the red masthead I can see is almost always, if not always, in the top left corner, isn't it? The sun, I see that everywhere. Like if I click on here, I can see just what this brings up here. I can also spot, for example, with the Sun, I've got this in the top left corner, as we said, the masthead. I might also notice that actually the headlines, many of them tend to be with a black background with white writing, as opposed to the other way around. There's a black box taking up quite a chunk, isn't there, on each side here. The image over to the right, I've got a smaller secondary story columns down on the left. So this black box is kind of surrounded with a red subheading underneath. You can see there, Royals in Court Today. This one says Russian crisis ramps up. Exclusive shot poll. So there's something that seems to be already, when I look at this, world holds its breath down there. I've got World Cup hero here. Okay, that's something that seems conventional of the Sun, the way they place their subheadings. The image is over to the right hand side, and more secondary stories, thinner column secondary stories over on the left over here. So that's something, just by looking at those, I might have noticed already seems to be fairly conventional of the Sun, just for an example. All right. You're going to need to use style models. So as I say, that'll be, particularly looking when you find something that you think is conventional, you think, okay, this one, I might decide this particular cover here seems to tick a lot of boxes of all the things that the Sun tends to do, and I might use that as a kind of a style model to imitate and think, okay, well, I'm going to build mine around this. You're also going to need to think about the political leaning, the ownership of your chosen paper. So these are things that we've talked about in the lessons, and you're going to need to explore this, because depending on the type of story that you choose, or the actual story that you choose, you're going to think to yourself, well, okay, how would the Sun report on this? What is their political leaning? What is their ownership model? What do I think they would try? How do I think they would try and report this story? Is that going to be different to my other options? So whether that's the Guardian, the Mail, or whatever. So you're going to need to take that into account as you look carefully about how you're going to put the story across. Okay. Just as a quick point, I'll get into Canva in a moment, that it's okay. I want you to make this yourself, and this needs to be an original piece. But in certain situations, it might be okay for you just to cut and crop particular things, just to keep it a little bit more realistic. So, for example, I'll show you in Canva, you might just cut out the Sun masthead, for example, to stick on. Just to save you, rather than kind of trying to directly imitate, just add into the realism. Or it might be that you cut and crop a particular advert, for example, that you see somewhere that you think would look great at the top of your paper. So let's just have a quick look at Canva then, as a reminder. So you click into Canva and you will see something that looks like this. Now, you're not going to get a newspaper template. It doesn't have newspaper, and you're not going to find one that looks just like the Sun, or just like the Guardian, or just like the Mail. So it's going to be very much something that you have to edit yourself. But it might be, for example, that you click on newsletters, maybe possibly one of the closest, and you're going to get loads of different designs here. So I'm just flicking through, seeing see if I fancy anything. And much of it is going to change anyway, so I'll go with this Great Nature Gazette here. I don't expect that I'm going to keep much of this. I can fully click on the text boxes, I can change shape, I can move things around, I can enlarge them, delete them, and I will probably do quite a lot of that. Okay, so yeah, if I look now here, I've got my layout, I've got my newspaper there, which is not looking very much like a newspaper. Now, just before I started to record this, I just clicked, you can see two pictures on the side here on my desktop. One's a front cover of the Sun, and one is just a picture of a nurse as an example. So what I might do, I might say, okay, I want to add a picture in here. So I click on Uploads. Now, I've already uploaded those two pictures in. Now, all I did to do that, very, very simply, I've got my picture here, and I just dragged it in, and I let go, and it drops it in there. You can see the two of them in there now. So it's as simple as that. Drag and drop your pictures in. If you find images, you're going to think very carefully again about your image choices. Do look closely at your style models, at what is conventional for broadsheet and tabloid, etc. What types of images you would use. That's very, very important. But for example, I've dragged in a front cover of the Sun here, and all I'm doing with that is, because I don't want you just to copy this, but all I'm going to do for this particular thing, I'm going to drag that in. And once I've dragged it in there, you can see I get some options at the top. I'm going to click crop. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to drag that right up to around the masthead. And click there. And then you see I've got kind of the Sun that I can just pop in that top corner there. And that's going to look nice and realistic. Okay. So now I don't want this picture of a mountain. So I think what I will do is I will get rid of that. And I might then say, okay, well, actually what I want is my picture of a nurse. I'm going to have some kind of COVID story, so I'm just going to drag that in here. Now again, looking at that picture, I don't quite like the shape of it. I might want to, if I think about my Sun front covers here, a lot of the pictures I can see maybe tend to be a little bit more rectangular, a little thinner. It's quite a square image that I've got there, which is probably going to eat up too much of my, where have I gone? Too much of my space where I might need the black box and the white headline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, again, I'm just going to crop it, and I'm going to chop off the bits that I don't want. So I'm just going to have it like that, and maybe just make it quite big. Tabloid paper. So and then I might decide, all right, okay, I'll go over here. If I click elements, I'm going to get just a rectangle, maybe, or a square. Just as a square, perhaps it comes in, and I might make this, you know, roughly similar to the size of the image there. But that pinky colour is no good to me. Remember, I'm looking at my style models and I'm seeing a black box with white text. So all I need to do, when I've got that in there, you can see suddenly at the top the menu changes. I've got that colour icon. I can click that, change it to black. Obviously, as you can see, that's blocking out my picture. So what I need to do is I need to go up to the right hand side and click position. And I want to go backward. And then all of a sudden we can see my nurse popping in nicely there. Just notice that one up there. I haven't used that before. Maybe that, if I click on the box, I might be able to fade it out nicely. Perhaps is it just that's just a transparency shift. Maybe I could do something slightly fancier, but I might leave it like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put I might drag this perhaps over here. Maybe again I'll bring that to the front. And what I'll do though is I'll make I've highlighted my font inside there, and I noticed on the sun that it was white, so I'm going to change that to white. You can see now that comes, comes over the top of the black text. Okay, obviously that's a bit small, I wouldn't need to enlarge it and so on, but you see how I'm starting to then build up the newspaper itself. Now what I would then recommend, what I would do, if you want to actually put in the text for your front cover, now I'm not expecting you to actually write up a story. We're more just in the headlines. You have to write your own headlines and subheadings, put the images in, but it's about design and layout and what is conventional and typical. So I'm not asking you to sit there and type an entire article. Please don't do that. All you need to do is go grab a text box. Now just be careful, because some of them do have a funny shape that they don't let you edit and alter, but hopefully maybe, oh, but this one's okay actually. Yeah, this one's okay. The one that's already on there, I can use that. So I've got this text box here. Now it's already got some writing in it, you can see. What might be easier though, you could just literally go to an article, highlight a load of text, copy and paste, and just put it in. It could be anything, it doesn't matter. We're not judging you on actually the content of the article. But what I might do then is make that nice and thin, which is typical of my kind of little side story here. And then what I can do is I can put in my little picture or a little heading that I might get on the side, something like you see here, Russia poison Brit dies, and you've got Charles, climate change down there. But a secondary story, what's been deemed a secondary story, is going to fit down that side, and I just put the text in, make it quite small font. It's not really, as I say, about us reading that story, it's more about the design and the layout. Okay, so you can see how that's starting to come together. Now on Canva, it's just a case of getting your images in, thinking about your headlines, and being very aware of what is typical or conventional for your chosen papers, which tabloid, which broadsheet you've picked. Okay. When you have then completed those two, okay, when you've completed them, this is what we'd like you to do. So you're going to create a blog post showcasing your two designs. Now for each one, I want you to write a summary paragraph that outlines why it looks the way it does. Where do you think you have shown the conventional aspects of the Mail or of the Guardian or the Sun or the Mirror or whatever you've chosen to pick? Where have you made it conventional? Okay, so a summary paragraph outlining why it looks the way it does and where you think you've hit those conventional targets. Okay, good luck with it. That's going to be your task for this week, and if you can have that up on your blogs before half term, that would be fantastic. Okay, good luck guys. Thank you.